Ready. Play.
Good afternoon, everyone, or good morning, as it is. I'm in Belgium. David is in Bristol, I believe, ahead of heading off to Italy, to Bergamo. Have you been to Bergamo before, David?
I have a few times, yes. It's a really nice place, actually. I like the tournament.
Yeah, cool. It's about 1 hour from Milan, maybe 2 hours from
Yeah,
Milan.
no, about an hour.
All right. All right. Well, for once we're not here to talk about Liam. Obviously, Liam's had a great year, winning challenger titles or a challenger title, and of course making the top 100, and still plenty to look forward to for Liam. But I wanted to speak to David about some coaching questions, not just Emma Raducanu, but obviously based kind of loosely on her comments from about a week ago. I wanted to get a kind of a neutral take, but also someone perhaps from the coaching community, and who better for me to chat to than David about this. So I'm just going to remind us all of the sort of quotes that emerged from Emma from about a week ago.
I ask my coaches a lot of questions. I think that on certain occasions they haven't been able to keep up with the questions I've asked, so maybe that's why it ended. But it's something that I've always done, and I keep provoking. I keep asking questions to coaches, and challenging their thinking as well. I'm not someone that you can just tell me what to do and I'll do it. Like, I need to understand why, and then I'll do it.
She then went on to say that she likes to challenge her coaches, and if they don't give her convincing answers, then that may explain why she has abruptly ended a lot of those relationships. And those relationships, by the way, have been 5 coaches over the past just over 2 years, including Nigel Sears, who was her coach when she made a big breakthrough, I guess, at Wimbledon, getting to the 4th round. And then an even bigger breakthrough at the US Open was with Andrew Richardson, a former player of yours, right, David?
That's correct, yeah. I coached Andrew.
Torben Beltz as well. Dmitry Tursunov. Tursunov is super well known on the tour and is the current coach of Veronika Kudermetova. And of course, Kudermetova is a top 20 player and doing great things. And then most recently, she had Sebastian Sachs, as I say, all over the last 2 years. I'm going to come to you with a generic question first, David. What's the most difficult part about being a tennis coach?
I think first and foremost, I would never work with somebody that I didn't actually like as a person.
Yeah.
I think the relationship is the most important thing in terms of if we just say everything being equal in terms of knowledge and stuff like that, I think the coach being able to read the room really well, feel what the player is feeling, and be able to identify with the player and know sort of timing wise when to say things, when to be harder on them, when to put an arm around them. I think it's a very those nuances basically count for so much, and I would say generally there will be a few off-court issues sometimes that can make or break a relationship, because maybe of the coach not quite reading the room right.
Have you said no to a player in the past because you just felt the vibe wasn't quite there?
Yeah, I've never said like, no, I won't coach you, because I don't believe that that's sort of fair, because that's going to make the player think, kind of what's wrong with me, maybe. But I just say, I've looked at my schedule and everything like that, and this just isn't going to work for me.
Sure. What did you make of those comments?
I've been very lucky. I can only recall one occasion of that happening, because I've had very long relationships with the players that I've worked with. So,
And completely different to Emma's situation with 5 in 2 years. What do you think regarding having so many coaches in 2 years? I mean, I guess can there be any good things that can come from that, or is it generally, you would imagine, for the player not helpful?
I mean, from my point of view, you got to always look at two things. One, the results, which since the US haven't been great.
Yeah.
Uh, but then secondly, also, you've got to be so clear in your head to play very good tennis. And if there's a lot of noise in your head, it's impossible to play your best tennis. And she's human, and having so many different voices in such a short time, which are definitely going to have totally different takes on certain things of the game. I know she believes that she can dissect it all and take the best from each person, which I'm sure she probably can. But things take time to bed in, and again, the pressure of deciding what you want to hear and what you don't want to hear, and then being able to, it's not like a computer where you can just put it in the trash can and it's gone. To not hear any of the other stuff and have stuff circling in your head, especially under pressure, I think it's really, really difficult, because if any kind of confusion out there, I mean, the margins are so small, the game is so fast. If there's any kind of hesitation or doubt, it makes it very difficult to play. Well, I don't think you can play your best tennis.
Right. What did you think about? She said that she likes to challenge her coaches with questions, and maybe the coaches that she had didn't react so well to that, and that's why the relationships didn't work.
I mean, I think it's brilliant that she challenges coaches. I think that really is a sign of a champion, and it's what she should do, because if you want to know that what they're saying to you is valid, and there's a valid reason behind it, and why it's going to make her a better tennis player. So that, I think, is a tremendous strength. Just from the outside looking in, I think she ought to have a list of all these questions that she's asked that haven't been answered to her satisfaction. And before you hire the next coach, ask those questions then, and see
Yeah.
what answers for those questions before she hires them. And
Yeah.
and then maybe she'll find somebody that, well, clearly that can answer all the previous questions.
I mean, Rafa Nadal often talks about the process, and that in a way doesn't mean immediate results and immediate success. So if there was somebody perhaps tweaking with a player's serve, whether it be Rafa or Emma or anyone, you might not be hitting aces next week and becoming a serve bot, but over a period of time. But a period of time is going to be more than a few months. It might even be a year or two before you can reap those rewards. I guess I'm getting a bit closer now to the point of trust, and I think that's probably to some extent maybe what you were suggesting when she was choosing these coaches, and maybe there was a lack of belief in the coach in the first place.
I mean, I can't speak to that because I don't know what she would be thinking. But I would hope that from this experience that she will ask the tough questions before she makes her next hire, and therefore have greater trust going into the relationship, rather than finding out once she's in it that it's not for her. And I think I think it's important to have a trial period,
Mm-hmm.
just to feel comfortable with the person as well, because that is, as I said, the off court feeling of comfort and everything like that is also really important, and just be maybe more certain in her head before she goes ahead again. the other side of it is people form habits, and
Mm.
picking up with a coach and kind of extracting the early honeymoon stuff, because at the start things generally can often go well because it's new, it's fresh, there's a bit of excitement,
Mhm.
but once that fades away, it's down to the real work. And as you said, I believe the real work takes, well, a long time sometimes to bed in. And I don't really, if you believe in what you're doing, time for me is irrelevant. As long as you get it at some point, you will be better as a tennis player, and therefore
Mhm.
do better. I've seen somebody sort of compare it to like a football club like Chelsea or whatever that's been very successful, changing coaches and everything like that.
Mhm. Mhm.
But I think, when you have a team environment, you have so many more influences from players to player, and in the dressing room.
Yeah.
Um, whereas tennis is one head,
Yeah.
and on the court it's her head,
Yeah.
and so many different voices in such a short time. I think for anybody would be really difficult to handle, and a steady voice for a longer period of time. Um, I think definitely, in my opinion, but I'm only going on my career, where it's been a real long-term process. Really, they've decided I'm the right guy for them, and I'm very happy working with them, and we just keep going. Um, you know, but I mean, I've not worked with a Grand Slam singles champion. I have worked with Wes Moody, who won Grand Slam in doubles.
Uh-huh.
Uh, so just maybe that is a slightly different psyche. I don't know.
But also with the Chelsea example, I do like it, by the way. And I think also there was a bit of, I was thinking about football as well when you were talking about sort of a new coach coming in with new ideas can often, the new manager bounce, the kind of expression that we use a lot in football, that you often get that breath of fresh air into a club and they do go on a short run, albeit often short. But regarding the Chelsea point as well, I think it's interesting. But they still had, some stability in terms of ownership and coaches. But the manager may have changed, and it would just be a
Yeah,
different voice in the dressing room. But still, it would be 12 months rather than 3, although maybe not always. I think in one or
yeah,
two examples. But as you say, that club, particularly in that era, they had leaders in that John Terry, Frank Lampard, Michael Essien, Didier Drogba. I mean, they sort of ran themselves in many respects, and we see it with Madrid as well to some extent.
yeah.
But coming on
I think if
to
you look at the bounce, I mean, I think Holger Rune this week with Boris Becker is
right, good
really well.
example, yeah,
That's a definite bounce given the form that he's had recently.
yeah,
It's a good bounce back. Uh, then you're going to just have to see longer term when because Boris has not been able to have an impact on his actual tennis game in such a short time.
no,
Had an impact on his mind, and the excitement and everything like that has made him obviously, get some of his mojo back. And
yeah,
then you win a few matches, and then the confidence flows, and boom,
yeah,
he's back. But in terms of his tennis career, I think a year, 2 years down the line, if Boris is still with him, you will start to see the long-term impact of that appointment.
right, exactly. Tursunov, by the way, so former coach of Raducanu, we did touch on him earlier. He spoke of some red flags and potential problems if Raducanu continued to change coach, but also listen to too many voices. What do you think he meant by that?
Emma is just a wonderful talent, and has proved not only her talent but also her mental strength in becoming first and more than likely the only ever qualifier to win a slam without dropping a set. I mean, it's just, one of the, greatest achievements in sport. But she's still human. And if the wheels fall off and the mind can't get settled and the mind is not clear, I would say what he's saying is, years go by, and if you do get lost in a quagmire, there are players that, have not been able to extricate themselves from that quagmire and almost in a way, forget what they had because it's been just so confusing. So,
yeah. Who do you think is choosing these coaches, and does Raducanu herself or Emma have a big say in them? What do you think?
Clearly her father has been, and probably both parents have been a huge influence on her, which is, most players, the parents, the reason they're there is because the parents have navigated the really difficult job of producing a tennis player. It is not easy. There's lots of travel. There's lots of sacrifice. There's, all of the juggling of school and training and all of that stuff that goes into a player becoming, really good. But, she is 20 now. She has won a slam. She's being involved with sponsors and everything like that. So she will have learned a huge amount as a person since winning the US Open, almost an overwhelming amount. But there's enough time passed now where I would hope that she's in a place where ultimately she will be driving her own career, making her own decisions.
Yeah. I was looking at the WTA finals lineup in some of these pictures that have emerged over the last few hours from Cancun. And I was thinking to myself, in terms of raw talent, she could not this year because of her injuries, but she could be there on a regular basis. Or am I still getting too carried away from the 2 years ago success?
No, I don't think you are. I think, what she produced there is what she can produce. And I'm convinced that if she got clear in her head and got some momentum again, and just stuck to a process until she felt good again and won some matches and got the confidence, that there's absolutely no reason why she couldn't be at the top of the game, and fighting for, titles. They're in terms of her game, there's nothing really there that you go, oh my goodness, if they don't fix that, it's
Right.
there. I mean, in terms of a game, I don't see a red flag anywhere. I might be wrong, but I really believe that she just needs to find a coach and settle down for at least a year. But she has to believe in that coach. She has to really trust that coach. She has to, because if she's not fully invested, it won't work. It doesn't matter who she has. She has to be fully invested. And, clearly she's not met that person where she can fully invest. And I think that's also part of the problem. You can't have any doubts about your team behind you and go and produce your best tennis.
Sure.
You have to feel like 100% I'm on the right path. This is going to work. I know, I can feel it coming. But if you feel this is okay, but I'm not feeling this, I'm not feeling that, again, it all creates this little bit of hesitancy, a little bit of doubt around the edges of the game. And the margins are just so minute in tennis. I mean, at the end of the day, you need to win 53% of the points pretty much to be guaranteed to win a match. That's a 3% swing from 50-50 that, when you're playing at the same level, most players are winning about 50% of their points on average. That's 3 points in 100 that are making the difference. Obviously, they have to be the right points as well. But if you win 53% of the points, you're pretty much guaranteed. I'd love to see the stats on exactly how many matches are lost when a player in singles has won 53%. I'm pretty sure it's going to be close to that 100 mark.
Yeah.
At 52%, I know you can lose matches for sure.
Yeah, right. I mean, as you said, you sometimes get the anomaly of winning more points than your opponent and still not winning, but it's pretty close. Obviously, you've been with Liam for the best part of a decade, so you know you never had this conundrum. But I'm going to put a conundrum to you now, and it's left field compared to what we have been talking about. Which of the big three on the men's side would you have liked to have coached? If one of them, if they, all three came up to you, let's go for sort of 5-10 years ago when they were in their pomp. You know, so Becker, I think, was with Novak about 10 years ago, and 10 years ago, I guess Rafa was with his uncle, but coming to the end of that relationship in 2016, 2017. In fact, at a similar juncture as well, I think Roger changed coaches. Those three come up to you in 2016, and they say they all want you to be their coach. Which one are you going for? If you weren't with Liam, of course.
I mean, at that time, I would have gone for Roger.
Okay. Because?
He kind of did what I was thinking when he came out in Australia. It was 2018.
2017, when he got to the final.
where he came back from injury and just started taking the ball so early.
Yeah.
And really going after his backhand. And that was an unbelievable game changer. You know, I remember saying to a very good friend of mine, Roger's kind of messed up a little bit of my edge as a coach, because I've always coached early ball, like really early ball, and felt that the whole way to becoming a really good player is able to rush opponents, because everybody hits the ball so well these days. If you don't rush them, it's very difficult to suck errors, and they all move so well. It's really, really difficult. And I felt that was a seminal moment in tennis. I mean, McEnroe did it way back, and that's when, you know, I learned off McEnroe, and it was the foundation of my coaching. Is, wow, the way this guy plays tennis is, for me, the best way of playing tennis. How early he took the ball, and suddenly Roger was doing the same, you know, and a year later, I'd say everybody was up the court way more than they had been. You know, he kind of led the way of the game there, and turned it. And you know, even Rafa, you know, really got up the court more. You know, for me, it was a turning point of the game, and the best players over history have always moved the game forward. And I'd say, you know, for me, Roger, in that little spate in 2017, moved the game forward.
If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell so you don't miss out on all things tennis.